Applying brilliant craft expertise to the smallest of ideas, Mob Psycho 100 boasted an endlessly confident production. A production we're about to dive into. So let's get to 100. A production that adores one's rough, sketchy art. The anime staff loved his work so much that the reason they kept the style so close to one's is because they wanted to keep the designs as close as possible to the spirit of one's designs. That's why it wasn't altered to the same vein of One Punch Man's. Director Tachikawa even mentioned in an interview that he wanted to make sure to preserve the strange, inexplicable atmosphere of the original. Despite that, there were still many differences between the two, mainly because one asked that only Mob be as close to the original as possible. He stated he'd prefer an adaptation to have some character to it than to be a slave to the source, and Mob Psycho was easily all the much better for it. Despite most of Mob Psycho's cast housing many veteran voice actors, Tachikawa decided on Ito Setso for voicing Mob because he was a complete newbie. He wanted a voice that nobody would recognize, to be somebody relatively unremarkable. He wanted the voice actor just like Mob himself. Mob Psycho's composer, KENJI KAWAI, stated that his main inspiration for his score was Taku Iwasaki's work on Mahoka. He was extremely impressed by Iwasaki's blend of electronic and traditional tracks and wanted to attempt something similar. Mob Psycho's gorgeous ED sequence was single-handedly animated by MIYO SATO, an expert in the mostly empty field of paint-on-glass animation. She completed the entirety of it in just under a month. Most of the parts of it were actually rotoscoped, since that was the easiest method for such a delicate way of animating. Sato even went around asking the lady staff at Studio Bones what they thought was the sexiest way to light a cigarette for Reigen's part in it. Taruki's second appearance early on in his arc has him turning a TV on. The arc ends with Ritsu turning a TV off after watching a newscast of what had transpired that day. One himself did key animation in the finale. He did key animation work in the after credits scene, but only the ending drawing. This was his debut as a key animation artist. Mob's homeroom teacher in the first episode also looks extremely similar to how Yusuke Murata, the artist for One Punch Man's official adaptation, draws himself, a more excluded cameo to One's other series. One starts off his stories by creating his characters first. He only starts thinking about the actual narrative and the world those characters will be in after laying out the starting leads. In fact, Reigen was the first character One created for Mob Psycho 100, and he was supposed to be the protagonist for the series. After he made the self-proclaimed psychic character, he made a boy that's a real Esper, but doesn't really want to use his powers to serve as a contrast to that character, and thus Mob stole the spotlight as the new protagonist. President of Bones, Masahiko Minami, has stated before in an interview that, because it's animation, let's try something that you can't do in a manga that you can do in an anime. And at a panel at Anime Expo 2016, he stated that Mob Psycho is one of their attempts at that. Mob Psycho 100 is unequivocally a testament to an artist putting his or her heart and soul into a project. It plays to the strengths of the animated medium and was an excellent show because of it.